We think that there was a plane that actually headed into that second tower at some point, and that's what caused that second explosion. We are unable to get close enough to actually show you or tell you what's going on at the ground, but an unbelievable sight here from above the Hudson River at this vantage point. Back to you.
I'm just looking at the wire service at this point, and it tells us that the FBI is investigating reports of a plane hijacking before the World Trade Center crashes. Now, that's all they're telling us. We know nothing more than that. Again, what's been happening here this morning, we have no absolute confirmation of anything other than what we can see with our own eyes. And now the FBI is telling us that there has been some sort of a plane hijacking that they're investigating.
Yeah, we have another witness on the telephone right now who actually saw the second explosion. Elena?
Cretella. Elena, can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you clearly.
Where are you? Tell us what you saw.
Well, actually, I was washing my dishes at my window, and I heard a very low plane, which usually does happen, but when I looked up, it was like I was actually gliding with it, and I saw it actually went straight into one of the Twin Towers. It was like it sunk right into the floor. It disintegrated instantly.
Can you tell us what kind of an airplane it was?
It looked like a huge 747. It was a big airline. It wasn't a small jet. It was a big carrier.
And you couldn't see anybody? Could you see a pilot or any such thing?
No, I actually was. It was like side by side. It was like I was right behind it. It was huge. I couldn't believe how low it was. I was telling my roommate, this plane is very low. And I actually saw it go straight into the Twin Towers. Like, why is he going into the building? It was like it was almost deliberately glided into the building.
Elena, where exactly do you live? Where did you see this from? Battery Park City?
No, I'm in the East Village on 13th Street.
And you then saw the plane go into the building, and I assume you saw the resulting...
You better believe it. I saw an explosion like I have never seen, and all I can say is those people, I don't know, but they're all definitely disintegrated. It was the most awful thing I've ever seen. It was so sad. I was like a nervous wreck.
Well, I don't blame you. I appreciate you.
It really was awful, and all I can say is we should pray for those people, because it looked to me that it was deliberate. Unless the pilot had a heart attack, it was like this big 747 just went right into the floor of the Twin Towers.
Well, Elena,
yes.
We thank you very much for for calling us and giving us this information.
Absolutely.
And, you know, obviously stick with us, because we are going to find out what happened. We just simply do not know for sure yet, other than the fact that airplanes ran into both of the Twin Towers about half an hour ago. 18 minutes apart was one attack from the other. I shouldn't call it attack. One ramming into the tower to the other. So.
But you say we are getting reports that the FBI is investigating possibly these two planes have been hijacked, and I would have to think if she's correct, and it was a commercial airliner that went into the second building, then I think we've definitely got a very serious situation. Well, obviously we have a serious situation anyway, but without going too much into speculation, I think we are definitely possibly looking at a terrorist attack here.
What we do not know, the FBI has not said where they are investigating the reports of the planes being hijacked from.
Right.
Obviously, it had to be a fairly recent hijacking, if that's indeed what happened, because there were no previous reports that would have led to any kind of speculation about what was going to happen next. If we might, could we take a look at that video one more time that shows the second explosion? The first explosion happened at about 10 minutes to 9 this morning. The second one was about 18 minutes later. And here we were on the air, and this is what we saw. Look over to, you're going to look over to the right of the screen, and in just a couple of minutes, as we widen out here, you will see what it appears to be a relatively small aircraft moving into the shot. Do you see it in the upper right? Coming in. And there you see it.
Absolutely incredible.
Again, we have no knowledge of who was in that airplane, who was piloting it.
We don't, if it was hijacked, we don't know if it was full of passengers or not.
We do not know. We simply know at this point that we have the tops of two towers that are clearly in flames. We are going to continue to seek out the information for you. Let's reiterate what our eyewitnesses have told us.
Well, we had the first plane crashing into the tower, which, if you're looking at your TV screen, would be on your right. We had a few phone calls. People said it looked like the plane deliberately went into the building. Some people were not too sure. And about 18 minutes later, right here on live television. The second plane came into the picture and crashed into the second tower a little farther down. And the witnesses we just talked to on the telephone just a few minutes ago, she said that she saw it fly by the window of her apartment building. She lives on the Lower East Side, and she said that it looked like a commercial airliner to her.
Yes, she said it looked like a relatively huge airplane.
Yes.
And again, the FBI is investigating reports of at least one plane hijacking and possibly two. Let's go to the telephone once again. We have Kay Cummings on the phone. Kay, what can you tell us?
I was watching the Channel 4 and the World Trade Center, which I can see really clearly from my window, and there was a big plane that was heading right straight for the second tower. It looked like a commercial plane, not a small plane, and I kept thinking, this is too low, it's too low, it's too low, and then it went right in. And you could see it was headed right for it.
Now, was this the first plane or the second?
Second plane.
The second plane.
I didn't see the first one.
And where exactly are you?
I'm on 12th Street in Hudson, and I have an unobstructed view of the World Trade Center from my bedroom.
Okay, and that airplane appeared to you to be a pretty good size as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, it looked like a commercial airplane. It came from the Jersey side, southwest side, coming toward the World Trade Center, very low.
We have now reports on the wires that the FBI is investigating this as foul play, a crime here, obviously. Looks like this is definitely deliberate.
Kay, what can you tell us about what you can see from the neighborhood right now? Do you see? I mean, can you see the street at all? Can you see anything?
No, I'm
much
I'm
too
in
high?
the village.
Okay.
All I can tell you is that there are loads of fire engines and police cars and sirens all heading down.
And as we are looking at live pictures, our SkyCam view, I assume you're seeing somewhat the same view from your windows.
Yes.
You can see it still appears to be burning pretty much out of control.
You can see the fire, and I can see the fire in the second building and the first.
And you've seen debris falling off.
Yes. Now there's a helicopter. That's fine.
Yeah.
And obviously, this is a situation because of the height of the buildings. It's going to be very hard for the fire department to get up there and put these fires out.
Absolutely. Kay, we thank you very much. I assume that you were pretty shocked when you saw what happened before your very eyes.
It was horrible. It was just one of those things you see and you can't stop. It was just, I don't know. I've never seen anything like that. It was horrible.
Okay, we of course have seen something similar to this back in February of '93. That of course was when the terrorist bombing of the World Trade Center, and that was of course a major disaster, and a lot of fatalities there. And this is obviously very frightening to have this happen 8 years later like this.
Well, it is, and again, they put huge security measures in play for getting into those structures. But as you pointed out earlier,
they're vulnerable from the sky.
They're vulnerable apparently from the sky.
Yeah.
Let's just tell you that we have no word at this point about injuries, fatalities, or anything like that, and we certainly would not want to speculate at this point. Emergency crews are on the scene. We will bring you what information we can get from them as soon as we get it. Now, as we said in Washington, the FBI is investigating reports of a plane hijacking before these crashes. There are two planes that apparently have been involved. We have physically witnessed one of them on our live camera. We do not know exactly what planes they were, what size they were, but our eyewitnesses have told us they appear to be pretty good-sized airplanes.
Well, maybe there's a little discrepancy on the first plane. Some people are saying it was a smaller craft. Some people are saying it was a larger craft, but definitely the witnesses we've talked to as far as the second explosion said that it definitely was a commercial airliner that crashed into the second tower. Again, the FBI is investigating this as foul play, which I think is pretty obvious at this point. And, you know, we'll just have to wait and see what happens here. But this is...
Okay, we've told you that the airports in the New York City metropolitan area are closed down. We have told you that the 1, 2, 3, and 9 subway lines are shut down for the moment. Let us go to Katie McGee over at Shadow Traffic, because there has to be other huge traffic impacts at this moment, Katie.
Jane, this is enormous. Right now, all your Hudson River crossings closed. No one moving in or out of town at the Lincoln, the Holland, or the GW Bridge. I'm looking at the inbound Lincoln live from my vantage point right now. They're starting to turn 7 buses around. I've not seen anything like this before. All bridges and tunnels, you're going to find closures. No one allowed in or out of the city right now from what we're hearing. You did mention the subways. 1, 2, 3, 9, and are suspended. Newark, Kennedy, LaGuardia airports closed to all air traffic at this point.
Katie, and any of the other sky cams that we have, do you see mass traffic confusion? What do you see on some of those bridges and tunnels at this moment?
What I can tell you right now, I'm looking live at the inbound side of the GW Bridge, and what we can see are the tolls. Everyone completely stopped. There is some traffic coming outbound over the span. I can also see people from the Cross Bronx heading into there, but right now no one allowed into town at all. At the Lincoln Tunnel, it is at an absolute standstill. I can see one bus on the outbound side trying to turn around and look like he's heading back into New Jersey from what it looks like.
Okay. Thank you very much, Katie. We stay in place, please, because we will be back to you shortly.
Okay, Jane, something just crossed the wires. As a senior government official speaking on the condition of anonymity said the agency is pursuing reports that one or both of the planes were hijacked and that the crashes may have been the result of a suicide mission. The source stressed that the reports are preliminary and officials do not know the cause of the crashes. But this is a quote, "It certainly doesn't look like an accident."
Well, again, can we reiterate what we do know? Because as you can imagine, this is pretty shocking to people in the metropolitan area to just even look at these pictures. What we have been told by eyewitnesses is that they saw apparently fairly large-size aircraft going into the first of the World Trade Center towers, the one on your right as you're looking at the screen. That was at about 10 minutes to 9. Then, about 18 minutes later, there was apparently an airplane, because we could see that from our own sky cams and our Chopper 4 video, that went into the second tower, and there was a resulting explosion there.
Okay, Jane, we have another witness on the telephone. Todd Hollerman, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Where are you, and what did you see, Todd?
I'm at 330 West 42nd Street. I saw a huge plane come in from the water and crash into the side of the building.
Which water? You talking crossing the Hudson?
Right.
Now, this would be the second explosion?
Right.
And from your vantage point, could you tell what kind of an airplane it is? There seems to be a lot of confusion about that.
It looked huge. I couldn't tell exactly what kind it was. It was just tremendous. I was just saying to my coworkers, look at the size of this thing. It looks like, some kind of stealth fighter or something.
And what you saw, was it deliberately aiming for the building? It didn't appear to be a plane that was in any kind of trouble, anything like that.
Right. I mean, I thought I was watching like a movie scene. It was moving in quickly. It was moving in close, and then it was just, boom.
Did you see any insignia on that airplane?
No, I didn't.
And you then saw it hit the tower.
Right.
And I'm just curious, did you at that point see any other, reaction? Did you hear anything? Did you see anything when you saw that initial explosion?
No, I'm not close enough to really hear anything, I don't think, but I'm just looking out my window right now in shock, watching this thing burn.
Yeah, as we all are. As we all are. Todd, thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we appreciate your information.
Sure.
Jay, we just learned that President Bush was in a classroom in Sarasota, Florida, reading to some students. His chief of staff, Andrew Card, whispered in ears and told him what was going on, and the president will be coming up in just a couple of minutes, and he will give us his reaction on what is going on. And
again, we have not heard from emergency workers on the scene to know the extent of the damage or the injuries at this point. One would have to assume on a day like today, a normal work day in New York City, 9 o'clock in the morning, most of those offices were probably open.
Yes.
And there were certainly a lot of people in those two buildings. To our knowledge, people on the lower levels have been evacuated. But at this point, we simply cannot bring you any information about what is going on.
There's one of those Hudson River crossings that Katie McGee was talking about. You see the George Washington Bridge, traffic has absolutely stopped. Traffic going into the city, you can see on the bridge, there's absolutely no cars whatsoever.
Let us just tell you that you really cannot get in or out of this city at this moment
Actually,
in time.
you can get on the outbound, and we're letting cars come out over to New Jersey.
Right, but you cannot get into the city.
Absolutely, can't get into the city.
All the airports are shut down. The subway lines, 1, 2, 3, and 9, are shut down at the moment. We do not know when anything will get back to normal. And again, to reiterate the point about the FBI said to be investigating whether or not there was some hijacking of a couple of airplanes involved in all of this.
Also, an anonymous government official said that it would appear that this was not one but two suicide bombings, that the pilots deliberately turned the planes right into each of the towers at the World Trade Center, and obviously you can see the disastrous result right here on our screen.
Let us go to Richard Thompson on the telephone. He is a licensed pilot and he witnessed this. Sir, from taking a look at what you saw, what can you tell us as a pilot about those airplanes?
Well, I was sitting in my office on the 8th floor at 632 Broadway at approximately 9:47, and at 9:47, give or take a minute.
You mean 8:47, don't you, sir?
8:47 this morning. The plane went by probably 50 to 100 feet above the building, streaking directly towards the World Trade Center, and it was a small business jet of some type. It was going so fast, and my window view is so short, but I could hear it screaming by at basically full power, no engine problems, going straight for the building. And by the time that I could get out of my chair, open the window to see what the hell was going on, it had hit the building, and that was probably a total of 5 to 7, 8 seconds.
So that would have been the first
that was the first.
The explosions.
Exactly, and it was directly, everyone was flying the plane was directly...
Richard, stay tuned. We've got the president. We're going to go to him next, but we want to come back to you.
Okay.
Going back to Washington after my remarks, Secretary of Rod Page and Lieutenant Governor will take the podium and discuss education. I do want to thank the folks here at Booker Elementary School for their hospitality. Today we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you very much.
You have just heard President Bush acknowledging that this was an apparent terrorist attack today on the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan. He has ordered a full-scale investigation and offered, of course, his prayers for whatever victims there might have been of this tragedy. And again, we have no information about who has been hurt, who was killed, if anyone. We know nothing other than the fact that there has been this apparent attack involving 2 aircraft. Can we go back to the telephone and Richard Thompson now? Are you still there, sir?
Yes.
Again, you are a licensed pilot. You were describing to us that you saw what appeared to be a small business jet that was flying, that came screaming by your office window and went right into the tower.
Exactly. Is that being a pilot is the first thing I recognized, that there was no way that a business jet could be flying at that level at this time of day over the city without special permission. So that I tried to crane my head out the window, but within 5 seconds before I could open my window and look out, it already had flown directly into the building. I mean, a pilot, I know that you could have avoided that at 99%. If you were in trouble flying that plane, you could have avoided that building. And so whomever was at the controls directly flew that thing right into the side of that building.
Could you, again, did you see the second aircraft? Apparently it might have come in from the other direction.
No, I couldn't see it. I was looking at the building when it hit, and I saw my colleague Tim Lufkin and I saw it hit the building, but we did not see it fly into the building. We saw the explosion from it.
And again, I guess we're still trying to figure out, there are some reports that these planes were hijacked. The FBI is said to be investigating that. But the one that you saw appeared to be a small business jet.
Yes. And the second plane was obviously a larger plane because the explosion from the second plane was tenfold larger than the first plane.
Okay. Mr. Thompson, we appreciate very much the information you've given us
And
this
may
morning.
God be with all those people, because this is going to be a tough day for all of New York.
Yes, it is, and we thank you.
We now have reports that the New York Stock Exchange is being evacuated in the wake of the disaster at the World Trade Center. They had planned to open as normal, so right now everything at the Stock Exchange is on hold. And right now, let's go down to Joe Avalar, who's on the street downtown. Joe?
All right, we're down here in Soho, as a matter of fact. You're looking at a picture from Prince and Worcester Street, and on the ground you can see what has happened all over Manhattan. People are stopped and they're staring. They're looking up and they're trying to figure out all of what's happening. In talking to some of these people, I met someone, Philip Russo, who actually witnessed the whole thing. You were driving east on Bleecker Street, that's correct?
That's correct. I was driving east on Bleecker Street.
Have you step around this way? Put
Sure.
it in the background.
I heard what sounded like a jet flying very low. I looked up, I saw a blue and white jet, 2 engines, going obviously in the wrong direction.
You were thinking jet, you were thinking 737, something like that, a
Something
large
like that,
jet.
a large jet, a large commercial jet, but with no markings that I could identify other than blue stripes on a white plane. It sounded too low. I looked up, it looked too low, going in the wrong direction, and I followed it into the building.
Flew straight into the building.
Straight into the building, dead on, disgusting sight.
Then you continued to look up at the building and you saw the second jet.
Well, then we were looking for about 5 minutes, just in horror at what happened. Saw a second jet coming from the west that looked identical, both in color and in form, and it smashed right into the second building. Huge explosion on this side facing us.
Now we're all standing out, we're staring at the building, all of us, in horror.
Yeah, it's the only way to describe it. Horror, sadness, and disgust.
You talked about fear and being scared.
What next?
And feelings of vulnerability.
2 huge planes crash into, the World Trade Center. What's going to happen next?
Mr. Russo, thank you very much for talking with us. As we look back up at the World Trade Center, and I know you can see it better with helicopters, but you can see it from the ground here as well. The picture that we are looking at, that most of Lower Manhattan is looking at, flames inside the World Trade Center and the huge hole, and we can all see how the flames have spread to upper parts of the building, how it's billowing out of the building, and how the other building is occluded. And everybody from this vantage point is, as Mr. Russo is saying, looking at it in horror, looking at it in fear, worried about yourself, I imagine. Where were you, sir?
Right underneath the Trade Center when it hit. Second one, both of them hit. We ran like hell all the way up here.
Did you happen to look up?
Yeah, we seen the second one run right into. We're unloading the truck. We got right out of there. Scariest thing I've ever seen in my life.
The planes never veered, did they? The jets just went right into it.
The second one, we heard the first one and seen everything flying out of the building. And the second one, we actually seen run right into the building. It came right from behind the building and ran right into the other side of the first tower, the further one down.
It's a terrible question, but what are you thinking about when you're looking at something like that?
I'm telling you, we ran because stuff was flying everywhere. It's the scariest thing in my life.
And that's
Never seen anything like it. Never seen anything like it, man.
And your name, sir?
Sean O'Neill. Just to tell my wife I'm all right.
As it is a way for people to let them know everybody's okay as they stand and watch this in horror. You're just walking through the area, sir?
No, I was with him.
You were with him?
And we heard the explosion. And I'll never forget that explosion, I'll tell you that. We were just under some scaffolding and debris started falling all over the place.
Now, people here talked about the second explosion and didn't think it was that loud. Didn't feel that it was
We were there. It was loud. I'm going to tell you that. We were right there for both of them, and it was loud.
Windows coming down off the building.
We just had like rocks and stuff, just every type of debris you could think of, just falling all over the place.
Now, you were there when this happened.
Yes, we were right
Why did you stop up here in Soho and then turn around and look at it?
You just have to see what happens.
First time we turn around and look.
You really, no, we just running from there. I mean,
First
be
to
honest
run
with you.
for safety, basically.
Yeah.
To get out of there.
And I don't know why. There's a whole bunch of people driving now for someone down there, just blocking the fire trucks and everything. We were trying to clear the streets and let fire trucks go through, and
it's a madhouse down
just
there.
madhouse.
That's really a good point to New Yorkers who may be watching us, however they're watching or listening to us right now, is to try to get out of that area to let the emergency crews do what they need to do.
Yeah.
Because there are clearly people still trapped up there, and firefighters and emergency crews still need to do a lot of work. And you can see as we're standing here that fire is spreading to different parts of the building, different floors, as it continues to engulf the building. Just a horrible, horrible sight from here in Soho. It is sad.
Saddest thing I've ever seen, man. Shoo.
It's sad. It's nothing like I've ever seen. Nothing like anybody here in New York has ever seen either. That's the scene here from Prince and Worcester Street, and we'll talk to some other people as time goes on. Back to you.
Joe, you are not close enough to. Okay, apparently Joe cannot hear us. So thank you, Joe. We appreciate that. Obviously, we are again trying to ferret out all the information we can about exactly what happened in Lower Manhattan this morning. The president has said it was a terrorist attack. There were 2 airplanes involved. Dozens of eyewitnesses have told us that. One of them appeared to be bigger than the other. The second bigger than the other.
And we all witnessed it right here on live television. Caught us all completely off guard. A normal work day here in Manhattan has come to a standstill. We've been told that the subway lines 1, 2, 3, and 9 have been shut down. All the Hudson River crossings have been shut down. The New York Stock Exchange has closed down for the day. And right now, a lot of people are just stunned in shock. Again, 2 airplanes, 2 separate incidents, minutes apart, crashing into both towers of the World Trade Center. And you certainly see the result as far as the structural damage. I mean, it is major. And as you said, President Bush said that this is an apparent terrorist attack. We expect to hear from Mayor Giuliani in just a couple of minutes. Governor Pataki is in town. As a matter of fact, he does have an office in the World Trade Center, but President Bush says that he has talked to the governor.
Right.
So as far as we know, the governor is okay. And like I said, we should hear from Mayor Giuliani in the next couple of minutes.
But again, to reiterate, we know nothing about what happened to the people who work on in those floors, in those buildings. So we are simply waiting to find out about injuries and casualties, if indeed that's what happened. So you were looking at a scene that one would wish you could never witness in a city like this.
And of course, this is the second major attack on the World Trade Center. There was the bombing back in 1993. And of course, that was at the bottom. And the top of the building, obviously very vulnerable, and we certainly witnessed that today.
Right, with all the security changes that they've made on the bottom, so nobody can get up there without the right kind of clearance. But it's vulnerable to attack by air.
Absolutely, you can't stop it up there.
We are going to once again go to Katie McGee because, as we've been telling you, the city is literally at a standstill. No one's being allowed in from any of the river crossings. And the subway lines have been shut down in that area, and the airports are all closed. Katie, what more can you tell us?
Jane, this is the latest. The city at this point is at a standstill. All 3 major area airports, LaGuardia, Kennedy, and Newark, are closed at this point to all incoming and outgoing traffic. All bridges and tunnels. No one is letting any traffic head into town. At this point, outbound, you are going to find some people. We just saw some folks that had been sitting in one of the tubes coming out of the Lincoln Tunnel. They were allowed out, but now everybody being turned away. We also saw a backup down near Canal Street waiting to get into the outbound Holland. Those people also being turned away. At this point, again, no one being allowed to head into the city. For all intents and purposes, all train service suspended is what we're hearing at this point. Police are saying, please leave the city if you can. Of course, this is rough because of the way traffic is right now. You really, really want to steer clear of anywhere south of Midtown, and again, everyone right now being turned away. We saw traffic trying to get into the Lincoln Tunnel, actually turning around and backing up buses, New Jersey Transit buses, bringing people back into New Jersey, never even making it close to the entrance to the Lincoln Tunnel.
Katie, what do you think right now would probably be the best way to get out of Manhattan? Probably head up the FDR and the West Side Highway?
At this point, you're going to want to try and get as north as possible. I can see from one of my cameras live right now the westbound Cross Bronx heading in towards the outbound George Washington Bridge. Traffic is an absolute crawl right now, but they are letting you get onto the bridge and, from what it looks like, come in over it and back into New Jersey. I do see traffic coming outbound George Washington Bridge, inbound again, completely stopped. If you were planning on heading into the city, even if you think you may still have a meeting, at this point, again, you're being advised to please stay where you are.
For example, if you lived in New Jersey, your best bet probably would be go through Westchester County, cross the Tappan Zee Bridge, and come back down?
You may want to try that out. Let me take a look right now and see how my Tappan Zee Bridge camera looks. Just bear with me for 1 second, and I'll tell you. Actually, it looks like right now, traffic heading into Westchester is moving, but it's at a crawl. Again, at this point, things are happening so rapidly. If you were to leave home in Westchester right now, I can't tell you you'd definitely be able to get into town in another half an hour, 40 minutes or so.
Well, it sounds to me like
Jane, we're just getting a report that there's been an attack on the Pentagon. This is the Pentagon. This is from the network. This is the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia.
These are pictures that have just come in to us here at News Channel 4. You are looking at live pictures of what appears to be an attack on the Pentagon. We can tell you nothing more than what you were looking at. This is approximately an hour ago that we had one airplane crash into the northern of the World Trade Center towers, and about 18 minutes later, another airplane crashed into the southern of the towers, and now we have this.
We also hear that the first plane that hit the World Trade Center was apparently hijacked after takeoff from Boston. It means there's a very good possibility that that plane did have some passengers on board.
Do we know what kind of an airplane is it? What does it say?
At this time, it does not say. It just says the first plane that hit the World Trade Center was hijacked after takeoff from Boston. That according to a U.S. official.
Now, according to the pilot that we had on a few minutes ago, he said that appeared to be a smaller jet, business type of jet.
Yes.
So perhaps it was some sort of a commuting airline or something like that. Let us go back and listen to what President Bush had to say a few moments ago. This was before this latest explosion at the Pentagon.
Today we've had a national tragedy. Two airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you.
This was President Bush about 20 minutes ago, but now let us tell you that since that statement, there has been an explosion at the Pentagon, and we have on the wire now a story that says an Associated Press reporter saw the tail end of a large airliner plunge into the building. And
this is a live picture of the White House. We understand the West Wing has been evacuated. Again, the president is not at the White House in D.C. He is down in Sarasota. He was reading to a class of children at a school when he was told what happened, and that's where he held his press conference. But again, two planes have hit the World Trade Center, and now witnesses say just a few moments ago in Arlington, Virginia, another plane has plunged into the Pentagon.
And again, we have no information about exactly what happened down there, other than the fact that some sort of an aircraft has crashed near or into the Pentagon. So obviously, it is a day that we are witnessing something we have never seen before, and we don't know anything more about who's responsible for it than we have since the very beginning, which was about an hour ago, which was when the first aircraft,
as the president said, apparently a terrorist attack.
Exactly, and he has ordered full-scale investigations and has vowed to use every effort he can and that this country can to find out who is responsible and to bring them to justice. We have had numerous eyewitnesses who have talked about the airplanes that they saw literally smash into those two buildings about 18 minutes apart within the hour. And obviously it was something that they witnessed with shock and with horror. And we have nothing to tell you at this point about the number of injuries or the fatalities. We understand Mayor Giuliani is about to hold a press conference,
yes,
and perhaps he will be able to give us some more information about all of that.
This just crossed about the Pentagon. An Associated Press reporter said he saw the tail end of a large airliner plunge into the building. He says smoke is billowing out of the Pentagon. So obviously now we're looking at the hijacking probably of 3 commercial airliners here in the United States. We know the first one
came from
that
Boston.
plunged into the World Trade Center came from the airport in Boston. And through a transmission, they learned that that plane was hijacked.
We should also warn those of you who are watching us that if you have plans to come into New York City today, you must cancel them. The city is literally shut down. The stock exchange has been closed. The airports are closed. The bridges, the tunnels, closed inbound and pretty much outbound at this point. The subways, all train service has been stopped. So we, of course, recommend that you stay put wherever you are and stay tuned to find out exactly what is happening.
And we've just learned that after what has happened at the Pentagon, that the West Wing of the White House has been evacuated, as well as the U.S. Capitol now. So I'm sure all government buildings are being shut down in the nation's capital and pretty much around the country, and I'm sure that we are now on we're on terrorist alert, probably nationwide, I would think.
And there's another report that's just come over that says the White House was threatened with a terrorist attack, a source says. We have another report from an eyewitness at the Pentagon. Says it was a huge fireball, a huge orange fireball. And another witness said that it might have been a helicopter that exploded. We've had an AP reporter who says it appears to him to have been a large airliner of some sort. And we do have reports that, of course, the FBI is investigating reports that it could have been hijacked aircraft that crashed.
As a matter of fact, the FAA has just now halted all air traffic throughout the United States. So as of right now, there are no commercial airliners in the air.
I doubt that that has ever happened before in this country.
I don't think so.
So again, we do have a bulletin that I see here that says a Palestinian DFLP official denies any kind of responsibility for the World Trade Center crash. You know, again, everybody is trying to find out exactly what it is that has happened here. We simply do not know who is responsible. If we might, could we see the video again that showed us the second airliner crashing into the southern of the buildings?
Now, as you will see in a couple of moments here, a plane will come into the picture from the upper right-hand corner of your screen, if you're watching at home. Coming down here in just a few seconds as our camera backs up from Chopper 4. There you see the plane coming into the picture. It will dip down below the first building. We don't see it for a couple of seconds, and then it comes back out and slams into the other tower at the World Trade Center.
Again, this has all happened within the past hour and 5 minutes or so. We are witnessing things that we've never seen anything like it before. Obviously, there was a terrorist attack back in 1993, about 8 years ago, on the Twin Towers. At that point, 6 people were killed, 1,000 people were injured. Major security measures were put into effect after that, making sure that people did not get into that building unless they had the proper clearance. But obviously, the buildings today were vulnerable to air. We do not know anything about the people who were working inside those buildings. Obviously, it's a full work day in New York City, a Tuesday in September, and it's also primary day. So people were going to work as usual. Now, it happened a few minutes before 9 in one of the buildings.
Yes.
Well, one would assume that maybe some of those offices weren't quite open yet.
I would think so. A lot of people had not arrived at work, and we certainly hope that is the case. As you said, the first explosion, the first plane slamming into the first building, a plane that was hijacked from Boston, happened about 8:50, somewhere between 8:50 and 9 o'clock this morning. And it was 18 minutes later, we saw right here on our live picture from Chopper 4, the second plane, which witnesses have described as a full commercial airliner, slamming into the second tower. And you saw the dramatic explosion. And then, of course, just a couple of minutes ago, witnesses say that another commercial airliner has slammed into the Pentagon down in Arlington, Virginia. The U.S. Capitol and the White House have both been evacuated, and we understand that the White House had received a threat of a terrorist attack.
Now we're looking back at the Pentagon. Again, you can see the smoke billowing from there. We have no other information at this point about casualties or injuries or exactly what it was that smashed into the Pentagon earlier today. That happened, what, 25 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago? Something of that sort.
One of the other pictures we actually saw a member of the military in full fatigue.
Outside the White House.
Outside the White House, fully loaded and ready to go for anything.
We expect that Mayor Giuliani is going to be speaking shortly. As you can imagine, I'm sure there is a scene of much confusion now at downtown in Lower Manhattan, outside the World Trade Center towers. We have just been told that the Pentagon is being evacuated at this point. And we're looking back at the World Trade Center towers here. The smoke continues to billow. The fire is clearly not under control yet.
Jan, we have another witness on the telephone of the second plane slamming into the second tower. His name is Robert Thomas from Brooklyn Heights. Can you hear me, Robert?
Yes, I can.
Can you tell us exactly what you saw?
I was on the roof deck of my building watching the fire from the first explosion, and I was on the phone with my parents in Florida, and I watched the second plane coming in from Staten Island-ish area, and I was telling my mom on the phone, that plane is too low. I can't believe it's that close to the building after the first one hit. And it was gray on the top plane. It was about the size of one of the shuttles, maybe coming from D.C. area. It was not a small plane. It was like a 737 or something. And whatever airline is gray on the top. And I saw it hit the building. I have a very good friend who works at Windows in the World, the pastry chef, Heather Ho, and I hope to God she's okay today.
Have you attempted to reach her?
I tried to call her at home. The work number is busy, of course. I tried to call her at home and got her message.
Okay. Again, we've been talking about how the FBI is reporting, or is investigating reports that at least one aircraft, if not two, were hijacked earlier today. So from your vantage point, what you could see appeared to be the size of perhaps a shuttle aircraft.
Right. It was not a small plane. It was a big plane.
Okay.
I know people have been saying a small commuter, but it wasn't small. It was definitely it definitely held a good group of people.
Mm-hmm. Could you see anybody through the windows of the cockpit of that aircraft?
No,
or were you too far away?
It wasn't that close, but I could clearly see the plane coming in. I could clearly see it aiming straight for the building. It was in a long, swooping motion. It wasn't a jerky flight. It went straight into it.
Oh, my.
And it was it was so low, it was unbelievable to watch. I'll tell you what, I'm scared right now.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments, and we thank you very much for giving us this information, because, of course, we are trying to find out exactly what happened on this Tuesday morning.
Jane, we're learning the State Department has also been evacuated. The Associated Press has learned that the White House was evacuated after the Secret Service did receive a credible threat of a terrorist act against the White House.
Does it say what time that threat came in?
No, it does not. So we don't know if it was before the planes crashed into the World Trade Center or after.
What we're seeing now is there's information that the aircraft at the Pentagon crashed in a helicopter landing pad near the Pentagon. Again, the West Wing of the White House evacuated amid threats of terrorism.
As well as the U.S. Capitol and the State Department now.
Exactly. One of the planes, we're also being told that one of the planes that crashed into the World Trade Center had been hijacked after takeoff from Boston, as you've just said, citing a transmission from that airplane. Let's go and review for you exactly what has happened as a result of all of this. All airplane traffic across this country,
yes,
has been grounded. There are no airplanes leaving or land. I would assume they can land, those that are up in the air.
Right.
But there are no aircraft that are going to be leaving any of the airports around the country for at least the time being. We do not know how long. It is virtually impossible to get up into this city right now. The bridges, the subways, the tunnels, everything is shut down. There are major traffic jams from people who were trying to leave or trying to get in. Obviously, it is a good day to stay put wherever you are. Obviously, the airports here are all closed.
Right.
The stock exchange has been closed.
Closed down. Subways, the 1, 2, 3, and 9, all train service in and out of the city is now shut down. And not that in the big picture, this is really not that important at this moment, but you have to wonder if maybe the primary election will be possibly be suspended because of this.
Well, people can't go to their polling places.
You're absolutely right.
And I'm sure that's something that they will sort out later.
Absolutely.
Because I'm sure not a single one of these candidates is worrying about that at this moment.
No.
We heard the president call this a terrorist attack. That was before the explosion at the Pentagon. So the president is being fully briefed. He said he had talked to the governor. Now, the governor has an office in the World Trade Center. He was in Manhattan, but we do not know where he is. President Bush has said he has talked to the governor, so we assume that he is safe at this point. We are waiting for the mayor to give us some kind of information about casualties or injuries this morning.
Okay, we have another reporter out on the street, Walter Perez. Can you hear us, Walter?
Here we are about 2 blocks away from Okay, 2 blocks away from where the whole thing happened, and this entire area has been cordoned off, and people that have been working in nearby buildings have been told to evacuate. That's what this mass exodus is to my left-hand side. To my right, we have 2 witnesses, and as we speak with you two, we're going to pan up and show a shot of what we see from this vantage point. First, Marna Ringel, and Marna, you work across the street. Tell me exactly what you saw on the street, and as you looked up, what you saw, because you said you saw the second one. Am I correct?
No, I didn't see the second one. I actually was coming out of the building, and there was maybe about 30 or 40 people at the bottom of One World Financial covered in blood. I did not expect that at all, and I work for Lehman in One right here, and a gentleman that I work with was on the telephone. He said, "What was that?" I said, he thought it was thunder. I looked over, screamed, "It's a bomb," because I saw a piece of the building flow down, and I think I scared my entire floor because I can scream pretty loud, and it was pretty bad.
Now, you mentioned that you saw people on the road outside of the building. Explain that scene.
I saw there's maybe about 30 or 40 people covered with bandages and blood. It looks like a lot of them were either on the floor of one of the exchanges. There's actually, oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
We're not sure exactly what happened, but it was another explosion on the far side of one of the buildings from where we're standing. The reverberation, and another explosion on the right-hand side. Another building has gone up on the right-hand side of the road. People are now running down the street. We're not sure if that was another explosion or if that was advanced debris. Joining me also is Jim Plant. Jim, you're also a witness of what happened. Tell me exactly what you saw from your vantage point across the street.
I was just across Liberty and West here, and I saw the second plane hit the Tower 2. It looked like a 737. It hit a glancing blow. It didn't hit it direct. I don't know where the rest of the plane went. But it went in, fireball came out, and it hit lower than the first plane, which hit the upper floors.
Jim, thank you very much. At this point, as you can tell,